Hey guys, welcome to today's video. So in this video, I will be talking all about my favorite podcasts of 2019. So 2019 is literally the year that I literally started my business, started listening to a lot of personal development content about business, marketing. Like, I have been here and there when I was in university, but 2019 was the year I found out about so many dope podcasts out there. It's the year I also started my podcast as well. So I kind of wanted this, I want this video to give you guys some podcast ideas out there, or like some podcast people that you might not have heard of. So a lot of podcasts that I listen to out there is a lot of personal development, spirituality, law of attraction, just like a whole bunch of range of podcasts. So I'm gonna be giving you, I don't know how many, I didn't even count it, I should have counted it, but I will I'll put the amount on there once I total it. So insert amount of podcasts on the screen. So I'm gonna be giving you guys some podcast ideas that you can listen to, what my take on the podcast are, and yeah, so you can get inspired as well and just get your weekly dose of awesomeness while you're driving. I know I like to listen to podcasts while I'm driving, literally all the time, while I'm working, while I'm at the gym, all the time. If I'm doing something, I gotta listen to a podcast. It's either I'm listening to a podcast or like a YouTube video that's like I'm learning something. So I'm gonna be giving you guys some podcasts that have really helped me this year just grow, shifted the way I think, the way I see the world, and just helped me learn. I'm gonna start off with James's Wedmore podcast. It's called Mind Your Business Podcast. I think that's what it's called. If I'm incorrect, I'll leave it on the screen. I really like listening to his podcast because he's somebody that believes in hard work, like working hard, because we're told working hard is the secret to building a business. And he essentially on his podcast just talks about how to work smarter instead of harder, which I'm all about. I'm not about like the hustle, but I do believe, yes, you do have to put in the work initially when you're getting started, but yeah, he just gets you thinking about things in a different way. He also talks a lot about spiritual laws, law of attraction, woo-woo things. If you're like a woo-woo entrepreneur, or you want to be like a spiritual entrepreneur, he talks about that. But it's also very practical. Like, it's not like, whoa, this is over my head. It's very practical, the things he talks about, and I just like hanging out with him every week. So you guys should definitely check out his podcast. Also, all of these podcasts, I will be linking them down below. I used to listen to all my podcasts on Apple Podcasts, but now I think I'm a Spotify kind of girl, so I've kind of like switched over to Spotify. Let me know down below what you like to listen to music, or where you like to listen to your music or podcasts on, if it's Spotify or Apple Podcasts. The next podcast I'm going to be talking about is by Catherine Zinkina, and it's called Manifestation Babe. I actually started to listen to her podcast while I was in university, and she talks a lot about law of attraction, manifestation, which I find really, really interesting and really cool. And so and mindset related content. And so she really, really got me into back into because I've heard about law of attraction, but I didn't really pay too much attention to it. But listening to her podcast has me more now into law of attraction, and she also gives you mindset tools. Also, I find her really inspiring as well. In the time span of 2 years, built her business to over $1 million. So I think that's so freaking amazing. But yeah, Catherine is just a good time to listen to. You'll learn a lot. It's also how I came to find out about angel numbers. If you guys know about angel numbers, let me know down below. Maybe I'll film a YouTube video about angel numbers and how I kind of use them. I'm not an expert on them, but I can kind of give you my take on angel numbers. So yeah, Catherine is a good time to jam out with. She uploads when she wants to, which is something that I really like. She's not on a set schedule or anything like that. It's pretty frequent that she uploads, but her podcast is just, it's amazing. And she's somebody that you can listen to while you're driving and not feel bored, and you're like, okay. She's very inspiring. She motivates you. And if you're someone that you're into law of attraction, manifestation, definitely need to check out Manifestations Babe podcast. The next podcast that I'm going to be talking about is going to be the Expanded podcast by Lacey Phillips. And When I first found out about her podcast, I was like, who are you? You're very interesting. I like you. So she talks about manifestation, but a modern way of manifestation. So her theory on manifestation is that you don't manifest things by feeling good all the time. Her method is based on your subconscious mind. So like where you manifest from. Each episode of her podcast, she talks about manifestation, essentially new age, a new age method of manifesting. She has really cool guests as well that she brings on, which I think is really, really cool. I love hanging out with her on Fridays because that's when she tends to post a video. And she also talks about like just really interesting topic like manifestation with like career, manifestation with money, manifestation with relationships, like whatever it is that you want to manifest. She essentially talks about that and her method of it. So if you're into manifestation, or you're like, you know what, I'm not sure if this method of manifestation is right for me, definitely check out Lacy Phillips. Yeah, I just love her podcast. It's a good time. If you wanted an alternative way to manifesting, check out Lacy Phillips' podcast. The next podcast I'm going to be talking about is the Receipts podcast. So late last year and early this year, I listened to the Receipts podcast. And even when I was in university as well, I listened to their podcast, and they're just a good time. Like, I like to listen to them when I work out because I'm literally like there lifting weights and like pissing myself laughing as I'm working out and listening to their podcast. So if you want to laugh or you want some girly advice, there's 3 of them on the podcast. So Tolly, Milena, and shoot, how did I forget her name? All right, I found her. Audrey. Oh my god, I can't believe I forgot. Yikes. The only thing is, like, you can only listen to them now on Spotify, so they're just based on Spotify, so you'd have to download Spotify to listen to the podcast episode, but it's freaking bomb. You should check it out. Next podcast that I'm going to be talking about is by Deandra Nicolette, and her podcast is called Manifest Daily, and I love her podcast. I found her out through Instagram, and if you want content that's based, once again, it's based around lifestyle manifestation, Deandra Nicolette is your girl. You literally feel like she's raw, she's honest. You literally feel like you're hanging out with a girlfriend each week, and you're learning as you go. And also she's your daily, like weekly source of motivation. Like, and she's just honest. I love the fact that like when she's on, like when you're listening to her podcast, you can tell like she's just being honest and raw and motivating you as well, and being like, hey, listen, like it's not easy, but we're all in this together. And she's just so insightful, and I just enjoy listening to her podcast and hanging out with her each week. Deandra's podcast is amazing, so you guys should definitely go check it out. And I found her podcast out this year, and I was like, I love this. Every Tuesday morning when a podcast drops, I'm like, I gotta go listen to her podcast. Like, so you guys should definitely go check out her podcast. She's freaking dope. I love her podcast. The next podcast I'm going to be talking about is Manifest This. Yes, Manifest This by Ashley Wood. And guys, let me tell you, Ashley Wood is different. Her content is definitely very different from what you might hear or see. But if you're somebody that's into the Akashic Record, manifestation, yeah, like I honestly don't even know how to explain it. Like, I feel like you guys should definitely go have a listen to it. It's definitely a different way of thinking, but I find her podcast very interesting, really relatable content. And it's also just, I find like it's very like just be yourself. Like, she helps you become yourself and you to step into your power and your gifts, and just knowing that the universe is with you and guiding you all the time. So I love Manifest This podcast by Ashley Wood. I think you'll find it really interesting. It's very different. Let me just put that out there. It's very different, but if you're somebody that you have an open mind, you want to learn something different, you want to learn about the Akashic Records, how to use the Akashic Records, then you should definitely check her out. So the next podcast I'm going to be talking about is going to be Oprah's podcast, Super Soul Conversations. Yeah, so that's what it's called, Oprah's Super Soul Conversations. I love to listen to Oprah's podcast, and it's honestly how I found so many like spiritual people, leaders, people that I look up to just by listening to Oprah's podcast and the wealth of information that's out there. So if you guys are not listening to Oprah's podcast, what are you doing? Like, seriously, what do you, it's Oprah. First of all, it's Oprah. But second of all, like, if you're just ready to expand your world, your knowledge, your horizon, you should definitely check out Oprah's podcast. She brings a lot of like guests on. I recently just listened to her most recent episode with Lady Gaga, and I was like, wow, like this is incredible. Yeah, Oprah's podcast is just like, it's like food for your soul. The last podcast that I'm going to be talking about is called School of Soul Wealth by Ryan Yakomi, and I love his podcast so much because he mixes like spirituality with business, because I'm somebody, I'm spiritual, and I like to learn a lot of like spirituality and business and mixing those two together, because I just think from like, it all begins first in your inner world, and then everything else flows from there. So from your inner world is what would show up in your outer world as well. So I really like to listen to his podcast a lot, and he talks a lot about like masculinity, or your masculine drive and your feminine drive, but not in a way that's like, this is how men do business. We all have like a masculine and feminine side to us. So if you're interested, if you're someone that's interested in like the masculine and the feminine side of running a business, and you are someone that's a coach and you want to grow your coaching business, you should definitely check out Ryan Yakomi's podcast. It's very interesting, and sometimes he does episodes with his wife on as well, which is really, really interesting to listen to. They're both just like freaking powerhouses, and I just love to listen to their episode each week and just learn. And then they'll have like certain episodes where they do conspiracy theories as well, which I'm like, whoa, this is definitely interesting. But yeah, that is it, guys. So that's it for podcasts that I've enjoyed in 2019. Let me know what are some of your podcasts that you like to listen to, your favorite like business podcasts is to listen to, lifestyle, learning, because that's kind of like what I listen to essentially, like for podcast episodes. So let me know down below, what are some of your podcast recommendations? Which one should I listen to? Which one should I try out? Or if there's any that I mentioned here that you listen to as well, go ahead and let me know what that is so I can check it down below and just like learn more, because like, it's 2020. What are we trying to do? We're trying to learn. So go ahead and comment down below, let me know. And if you've never heard of these people and there's one you're like, oh, I want to go check them out, let me know which one that is down below. So that is it for this week's video. I hope you guys have enjoyed this style of video. Found a lot of new people to listen to and new people to check out through my podcast recommendations. And if there's any more like video ideas, like recommendations you want from me, go ahead and drop it down below. I got you. I'm always reading my comments, replying back to you. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great week, day, morning, or whatever time it is that you're watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye. Best freaking water ever. Not sponsored, but y'all can sponsor me. I'm okay with it. I'm down with it. I will definitely promote Flow. Hey guys, welcome to my channel today. My name